If you want to create deeper connection with your partner and you're in those moments where the two of you are fighting and you're both digging in your heels and you can't figure out why can't we find a solution to this, the principle I'm going to share with you today has changed my relationship life more than any other principle that I know. And it's the concept of needs versus strategies. And it comes out of the work of nonviolent communication. And so a special shout out to my cousin Tyler Boggs, who introduced me to that book and this concept because it has been a game changer. And so I'll share with you the concept and then a few examples of how to apply it in your own life. And this is one of those things that you keep it in your back pocket and you can use this in your primary romantic relationship, but you will also use this in every other relationship where you're feeling like there's a disconnection or you're feeling like there's friction going on, because it helps you get right to the core of what the solution is for that problem or that friction in a way that helps you love the other person even better because you know them even better. So the first concept we need to understand to really unpack needs versus strategies is, what is a need? This was a hard one for me when I first dove into this because I was trained in my upbringing that needs equal weakness. That if you have a need, that means you're not able to provide it for yourself and therefore it's weakness, which is a really flawed way of thinking because we all have needs. And so think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the base level, you've got the needs for survival. You've got food, water, shelter, sleep, things like this just for your survival. And as you move your way up this pyramid, at the very top, you've got self-actualization, really the need that every one of us has for fulfillment, the needs of what it means to be human being. Needs are the universal human emotions for well-being. So we might have a need for connection. We might have a need for significance. We might have a need for contribution, a need for growth, a need for play, a need for rest. There are all kinds of needs. And what will happen is we will have a need that bubbles up, that rises up. And the attempt to meet the need is what we call a strategy. So I'll just give you an example of this from my own life. Some days I'll be working in my office and it'll be a long day, like 8 or 10 hours. And a lot of the day is on Zoom with my team and we're visioning and masterminding and coming up with stuff, but it's like meetings all day and I'm in front of this computer. And so I feel this need. And this is room, this office, I feel the need to get outside. Like I want to get outside. I want to get into nature. And I've been sitting, so I want to walk. I want to exercise or move or run or do something like that. My wife is out and about all day. She's moving, running errands, and she's with the kids a lot of the time. And so one of her needs is connection. She wants to connect with me when she gets home. And so often what she will want to do is sit and talk. Well, I've been sitting for 10 hours. I don't want to sit for 10 hours. So her strategy, think about this, the strategy for her to get her connection need met is sit and talk. My strategy to get my outdoor movement is I want to go for a run. So she'll get home and I'll say, hey babe, welcome home. I'm glad you're home. I'm going to go for a run. I'll be back in 45 minutes. And in the past, she would feel rejected. She would feel hurt. She would feel angry. Like, I've been with the kids all day. It's your turn to be with the kids and like to play with them. And so there would be this friction. But when we began to understand what the needs were, like, okay, so your strategy is to go for a run. She would say, no, I just want you to sit down and talk to me. And we would say, no, okay, your strategy is sit down and talk, but what's the deeper need that you want? And she was like, I just want to feel connected with you. And I was like, all right, well, what if we go for a walk together? If we go for a walk together, I can get my outside time and my body moving. I'm happy to talk with you and connect. And she was like, I love that too. I can connect and talk with you. So then we can go for a walk. I'll give you a second example that literally happened today, this morning, and how understanding the deeper needs took an argument that might have lasted throughout the day, solved it in like literally 2 minutes. And so I sprung some news on her, which she never likes. But I was like, hey, babe, I want to go get some toys for some kids for this charity and go buy the toys tomorrow and give them to the charity. And she was like, no way. I don't feel good about that. I'm feeling overwhelmed, like instant overwhelmed, because we're leaving in 3 days for a 2-week vacation. And there's all this packing to do. And she's like, we've got all this packing to do and I'm not in for that. And so I start to feel this rev up in me of defending this idea of giving these toys to this charity. She's feeling revved up in giving in packing and getting ourselves ready, but she knew I was going to be recording this video. And so she goes, wait, you're doing needs and strategies. She's like, okay, well, let me tell you, my deeper need right now is safety. Like I am feeling overwhelmed and I don't feel settled that we're going to be ready to go on this vacation, and we're going to go on this vacation and I'm not going to have what I need and I'm not going to feel safe. So I have this deeper need for safety. And I said, oh, thank you for saying that. Because if I were to check in the charity and the toys and the kids, like I've got a need right now for contribution and for giving. Like I feel like that energy is rising up in me and I would love to meet it. One strategy is take the toys tomorrow and give it. I could probably meet it some other way. Let me ask you this. If we could make sure that all the packing was done tonight, so we're 100% settled, then tomorrow morning, could we grab the toys and we take it to the charity? And she was like, yeah, if we were done tonight packing, she goes, I'd feel settled. And so notice this, when you can get to the deeper need, two things happen. Number one, we feel compassion for the other person, a greater understanding for where they're coming from. And then number two, we are resourced to find a different strategy or a different way of doing the same strategy that can meet both people's needs. What most people tend to do is they try to solve it on the strategy level, where I try to tell her, and what that would look like in this example would me saying, babe, just relax. It's okay if we're not packed. It's okay if at last minute we throw these things together. I'm putting my operating system on her. Or for her to say, no, it's okay. Let it go. Let giving the toys to the kids go. In other words, what would happen in that regard would be neither one of us would actually get our needs met. I'll give you one more example of this. This actually comes from this book, Fight Right, by the Gottmans. I love this book, been just devouring this book. Julie and John Gottman, out of the University of Washington, two of the foremost relationship researchers on the planet, shared about how that they had this conflict that they didn't know how to resolve because they were trying to attack it from the strategy level and not the needs level. And this was before they were even aware of this concept. The strategy was that Julie Gottman really wanted to buy a cottage on an island in the San Juans off of Washington State, the beautiful nature, these islands called Orcas Island. One of them, she wanted to buy a cabin there. They lived in Seattle in the hustle and bustle of the city. John Gottman did not want to buy a cabin on Orcas Island. He was like, are you crazy? And she was like, but I want it. And they had taken a vacation there for like a weekend or a week or something like that. And she loved it. And he was like, no, absolutely not. And they went around on this for years. And this became a sore spot for them. Like they never got reconciled. And it was always one of those things where she was then holding resentment towards him for impeding her dream. He was holding resentment for her for wanting this unreasonable thing. So they sought out counseling. Know this, not all counselors are created equal. So John and Julie Gottman, this was early in their marriage and they're burgeoning researchers. And this counselor was not a good counselor. And the counselor was trying to help them. And ultimately what the counselor did was, after a few sessions, counselor turned to Julie Gottman and said, Julie, your husband is the man of the house. He said no, and so you need to listen to him. And John was like, what did this counselor just say? And on the drive home, they were silent. And John turns to Julie and said, is that what I sound like? And she was like, yeah, pretty much. And then when they got home that night, they decided to take a different approach where they began to look, ultimately, they didn't even know what they were doing, but they began to dive deeper into the underlying core needs. And what came out of that was that Julie felt safe in the forest, which is where this Orcas Island cabin was. It was right in the middle of the woods. Because when she was growing up, her mom and dad were abusive. Her mom and dad were arguing. It was a violent household. And Julie, at the age of 10, would escape the house out the back door and go into the woods because their house was backed up against the woods. And she would often sleep among the giant trees. It was in the trees that she felt safe. It was in the trees that she felt at home. And it was in the trees where she could feel the most relaxed. On the other hand, John Gottman grew up in Poland, and it was during the 1940s in World War II. And they got word one night that the Gestapo, the Nazis, were coming to their village. And so in the middle of the night, their family got up and with no luggage, just the clothes on their back and salt and pepper in their pockets, they fled to Switzerland and they left everything behind. And then from Switzerland moved to New York, and from New York moved to Seattle. And so his mindset was, you do not want to have excess material things. Do not put your investment in material things because it can get taken from you just like that. But instead, invest in your mind, invest in the things that can never be taken from you. So he went on to then invest in his PhD and invest in books and research in the things that can never be taken from you. And in his awareness, what was in his mind. And when we got to the deeper core needs, that he said, oh, one of my needs is this feeling of my safety comes from not having a lot of material things. Her safety was coming from the forest. And so in that greater understanding of what the needs were, they said, okay, well, maybe we could create a strategy that helps both of us feel like we get what we need. Why don't we do this? Let's rent a place on Orcas Island for a year and experiment. If we use it, if we're really finding great value from it, then we'll go ahead and buy it. If not, then we'll let it go. And Julie said, great, I love it, I'm in. And so the two of them went and actually explored that island for the year. And the irony here is that John loved it. He actually loved the island. And they were writing this chapter of the book from the cabin on the island. The takeaway of this is that the lens you put on when you're in a conflict with somebody, often the surface level thing isn't the thing. Ask yourself, what's the deeper need this person has that's not being met right now? What's the unmet need that's occurring? And how might we speak to that? Or when you feel yourself kind of flare up and feel dissonance and just you're not at ease, ask yourself, what's the unmet need that I have right now? And this is such a beautiful thing, not only for self-care, which then increases self-esteem and self-love and the open-heartedness, but your ability then to love the people that matter to you even deeper skyrockets. The connection that you have with other people deepens, bonds you together. The friction lessens. The solutions that you find them faster. So I encourage you to go deep with this practice, put it on, explore it, see if it serves you. So what I would love to hear from you is this question. What are the deeper needs that you have? And what are the strategies that you try to get those needs met? Like when you notice, oh, you know what? One of my deeper needs is for a connection time, and my strategy is getting together with my girlfriends. Or a deeper need that I have is rest and calmness and silence. So I do meditation. What's the need and what's the strategy that you use to meet that need? And I think it's going to make for a really rich conversation in the comments below. Here is to your expanding heart. Here is to your expanding life. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.